So, Thursday night, been a long day. Esther was getting ready for bed. Her sister had already gone to bed, and Esther noticed someone at the door. It was John, the director of data, and this was very unusual. She figured he had a good reason for being there. So she let him in, and he was exhausted looking, and he said to Esther, he explained they had excellent intelligence information that a dirty bomb had been smuggled into Chicago. And in fact, they had located the people that were suspect of this. And they found out that it was 6 men that had taken over a home not too far from where Esther is living. And unfortunately, they had killed all the family. They weren't certain about their intentions and their time schedule, but with as all things, time was of an essence. They wanted to stop this group of terrorists as quickly as possible, realizing that they were killers made it even worse. So at any rate, John said to Esther that he has good people, but with Esther's qualifications and some training in dirty bombs, she would be the best candidate for this job and his first choice. So Esther said, "Absolutely, John." And she walked to the center room, opened up her concealed closet on the right side of her bedroom, put her hand on a glass panel which scanned her palm print and fingerprints. It opened up. She pulled out some black clothing, a belt with some knives on it, and some black sneaker shoes. She quickly went to the restroom, came out, dressed in black, and said to John, "Do we have a plan?" John said, "The power company has agreed to turn off the power when we ask them to, hoping that you'll be able to sneak in and terminate these 6 people on the chance that maybe one of them could activate the bomb. I know that you have training on dismantling bombs, so that's one more reason you're a good choice for this." So John said, This is actually about only 12 minutes from here. So they left. Esther left a note for Day, just in case she woke up, saying I'd be back within an hour. And John and Esther took off. Well, they went into a van about 2 blocks away from the home that the terrorist had taken over. And through satellite videos, screening and x-ray screening of the house, they had determined that one of the family members, possibly the 18-year-old, was still breathing lightly, just faintly. Everybody else was dead. That included 2 children and mother and father. They're thinking the 18-year-old had possibly been drugged, lowering her heart rate, and was being raped. So Esther looked at the map, saw where the house was, said to John, wait 6 minutes, turn off the power for 12, and then turn it back on, and come to the front door of the house. John said, you have it. So Esther, before leaving, said, oh, by the way, what's the girl's name? And they said, Rita. So Esther left. And John said, call the power company and give them a countdown now for 6 minutes. So in 6 minutes time, the power company turned off all power for this section of town. Esther was already in the house that had been taken over by the terrorists. They had all ran around throughout the house. They were all at the front door and window looking out. And one of them said to the other, what's going on? And one responded, it's a power outage. Happens all the time. Power will be on eventually. So like I said, Esther had already gained entrance to the home. And she was standing behind him, waiting for one of them to notice her. When finally one did turn around and spotted her, she threw a knife, which went through his neck, and he dropped to the floor. Slowly, the rest of the men all turned around, and Esther threw the knives, killing him silently, either landing the knife in their head or heart. And 6 men dropped. Then Esther turned around, walked down the hallway, and it reminded her of Bushra's home. Bushra, she had saved from some terrorists not much more than a month earlier. So slowly going down the hallway, she found a bedroom, and Rita had been tied up in there. She had a gag in her mouth, and her arms and legs were tied at each end of the bed. So Esther approached her, and Rita was alert. Esther told her, my name's Esther Saint. You're safe and all the men are dead. And she repeated herself, all the men are dead. You're safe. She started to cut Rita free, and she removed the gag on her mouth. Once Rita was cut free, she grabbed Esther and hugged her. And Rita said, "Who are you?" And Esther said, "My name's Esther Saint, and a good friend of mine, John, asked me to come here and save you. He's going to be asking you some questions, and for the next day or two, and they'll send you to the hospital to be checked out, and I'll be close by. And if you need anything from me, you tell John that you'd like to see me. Otherwise, I'll come visit you in a day or two." So they got up. They walked out the front door, stepping over the dead men, and floodlights came on. Esther's friend John said, "Stand down." John ran up, said, "Is everything okay?" Esther said, "We got 6 dead men in there." So John quickly told some people to take Rita to a hospital, and then he looked at Esther and said, "Why don't I take you home? Maybe you can get a little sleep before tomorrow. I know tomorrow's a school day." And John got Esther into his car, took her home, and thanked her for her help. Esther expressed to John that maybe she'd like to talk with Rita sometime, knowing that Rita's gone through a real shock having lost her family. And John agreed. He said, "I'll text you tomorrow where she is and how she is." So John walked Esther back to her apartment, and when Esther went into her apartment, Dave was awake. Dave said, "I knew you'd be back, but I couldn't sleep anyway, so I made some coffee." And Esther said, "Is that decaf?" And Dave said, "Yes. And there's 1 cup left for you." So the two of them sat down, sipped coffee, and Esther just told Dave that John needed help saving this girls from some bad men. They picked up on the idea that there was probably more to it, but Esther told her that this was all she could tell her right now, due to the rules of confidentiality that she had to observe. And so Esther and Dave went to bed and slept.